we are back with collaboration part 2. Hey guys, it's me, Princess Sophie Pink here. I hope you enjoy my collaboration series so far. If you guys have seen my last video, you will know who's up next. And if you haven't, let me give you a clue. This is a YouTuber that uses his hand in all the videos. Exotics Lair! He's inspired me to do this channel, and he's taken some time to do this collaboration, and I really appreciate it. And let's see what he has to say. Let's get on to it.
Hey Princess Sophie Pink, hope you and your family are doing well. I'll try my best to keep my answers to your questions short, but I mean, knowing me, I'll find doing that a little bit difficult, so you gotta bear with me. Oh, and I'll just play some tarantula feeding clips as I answer them so you don't have to look at a blank screen. So yeah, let's start with your first question. What got me started in the hobby? Well, it wasn't really planned actually. I never knew tarantulas were a thing. I mean, yeah, I knew they existed, but never knew people were able to have them as pets, because I thought all they were these huge hairy spiders, and why would anyone even go near them? What actually got me interested in them was by watching this YouTube channel called Tarantula Addict. I cannot remember how I stumbled upon his channel, but what I can say is that I was addicted to it. Yes, his name Tarantula Addict, I was addicted to it, especially the feeding videos. If you don't know who he is, feel free to check him out. My personal favorite was once where he feed his teas some fat juicy beetle grubs. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So yeah, after watching him for a few months, my friend actually found a local Facebook page that sells tarantulas. He asked if I would like to give it a shot at keeping one. I did think for a while, but ended up giving in, and yeah, I got my first ever tea, which was a charcoal golden tea. I got him as a sling, but unfortunately after 1.5 years, he became a matured male. Yeah, which it's all our tarantula keepers' nightmares. We don't like matured males unless we want to breed them, of course. But I did find him a female, and we did have some slings, but he pretty much expired, like he died a few weeks after pairing. So yeah, that's how I started. So next question, shall we? What do you find most difficult with keeping your animals? Okay, I will talk about tarantulas mainly, okay? Now, the main thing I find difficult is with temperature and humidity, because where I live is hot, like really, really hot. Humidity is super high as well, so yeah. Now, that may sound good, but it has some bad sides too. Like for example, when it's too hot, we're experiencing some heat waves over here. So yeah, when it's like really hot, tarantulas tend to get weak and they can dehydrate really quickly even with a water dish. And when it's too humid, mold breaks out, which is of course bad for teas. So I'm currently experimenting with my teas. I've rehoused a lot of them into shoe boxes with damp substrate to like limit the rate of evaporation, because the damp substrate actually helps lower the temperatures within the enclosure. So a lot of my teas started to get weak on dry substrate because we're currently experiencing some bad heat waves, like I mentioned. Now, since my teas are on damp substrate to fight the heat, humidity becomes a big problem. Since it's already very humid here overall, the damp substrate makes it extra humid, yeah, which leads to mold. So it's kind of stressful for me. Dry substrate, tarantulas get too hot. Damp substrate, too high humidity. This thing's not always an issue, but when heat waves comes, when there's heat waves over here, it's bad, especially when it's happening for a few months. I've lost quite a few tarantulas from the heat wave already, and yeah, it's quite bad. Fingers crossed for the future. Is there anything you really want and don't have? Okay, I'm not gonna be talking about tarantulas now, because what I really want and I don't have and I really want in the future is a pet goat. Yeah, sound super weird and random, but I've interacted with goats and they are super affectionate companions. My mom had a goat when she was young and she said they're super loyal, like dogs actually, but unfortunately I don't have a big enough compound for one to thrive. So maybe in the future, maybe I'll buy a land in the future, not too sure. So oh my gosh, my video is already like more than 4 minutes, so yeah, like I mentioned, I find it difficult to keep things short, so I'll just end it here. Thank you so much for your time and thanks for listening.
Thanks, Exotic Slayer. It means a lot to me and I really love your answer. And let's get on to the next one. Wonder what it's going to be. The Spiderman! Let's see his answer.
So guys, as you've just seen, I have been sent an amazing question by Princess Sophie Pink, and the answer to your question is to stay as calm as possible if you're doing an unboxing or you're doing a rehousing. As you know, tarantulas can be very unpredictable. They can just bolt out from anywhere. I know I'm very, very nervous inside, which is just natural, but I've learned a lot to stay as calm as possible.
Up next is the Invertabarian. He has a weird accent, but he's awesome.
Hello, it is me, the Invertabarian, and first of all I would like to say a huge thank you once more to PSP, Princess Sophie Pink, for allowing me to be part of this collaboration. Now she has sent me some questions and would like me to answer them. I shall certainly do my best. So, number 1 is top 5 husbandry tips. So first and foremost, here's my number 1 husbandry tip. Husbandry tip. Cue special effects. Number 1 would be, although not technically I suppose a husbandry tip, but research it. It's probably the most common answer to this question. You cannot really look at the husbandry of any animal without research. So in order to be able to provide correct husbandry, you need to research habitat, temperatures, humidity levels, feeding size, and everything that you're going to need to know to be able to efficiently provide any level of husbandry for your pet. Don't get me wrong, every keeper makes mistakes. Every keeper learns from those mistakes, or I should certainly hope so. And yes, so learn about what it is you're looking to get and keep as a pet. So that's number 1. So number 2 for me would be adequate and appropriate housing units or tubs, whatever you want to call them, enclosures. I quite favour glass, but I do also use phanariums and other pots and vials and plastic type things. It doesn't necessarily matter on the substance in which the enclosure is made. Some people prefer plastic, some people prefer glass. As I say, the preference is to that of the keeper and how they want to display it. The point I'm trying to make is that it has to be appropriate. I'm talking size or depth, width, height, whatever. There's no point keeping an animal in an enclosure that barely allows it to stretch out its legs, for example. There's no point keeping an arboreal, in other words a tree climbing spider, in a very small, narrow, long tub. So please make sure that your housing, in order to provide efficient husbandry care, is the housing unit in which you keep it in. The better the unit, so to speak, the better the husbandry for that animal is going to be by providing it the correct environment to live in. Oh, I forgot my special effect. That was number 2. 3. Okay, so for number 3, I would say another great sort of husbandry tip. I don't know if I'm even going down the right lines with my train of thought on this, but I would say farm your own food if possible. Now, keeping a number of exotic pets can build up to be quite a pricey hobby, although they're not the most expensive pets to look after. If you're using things like heating sources, lighting sources, food supply on top of that is also another thing that adds to the bill. So if possible, start your own food farm. So be it mealworms, cockroaches, red runners, which are also cockroaches, whatever, fruit flies, bean weevils, etc. Farm your own food. It will save you a fortune, and also is an extra little pet to add to your collection. 4. So number 4, I originally was going to go with a sort of think about the suppliers you're using, but that's not really anything to do with husbandry, so to speak, although you can't keep anything without buying anything. But anyway, I digress. What I'm going to say is try and keep the setup as natural as possible. Look at the natural environment of the animal in which you're housing and try and replicate that as much as possible. The more, obviously, just make sure you have the standards: food, water, hide, a decent level of substrate. But the more you can build up on that and maybe going towards sort of bio setups and that kind of thing, the better it's going to be for your animal. So yeah, bioactive setups, the type of plants you use, the type of lighting you use, everything like that. Just again, it falls back to research. Make sure you get it right and try and create a nice environment for your pet to live in. 5. This one I have actually mentioned before. I think it's really useful thing for people to think about having in terms of maintaining husbandry, and it's basically have something to keep all your bits and bobs together. Have tongs, pipettes, spare containers, brushes. There is nothing worse than going to feed your whatever it may be and not being able to find your feeding tongs. Or I even have super glue in here so that in the case of emergency or ruptured abdomen, I'll be able to glue it back up and hopefully save the life of the animal. Thus far I've not needed it, but I believe it's a useful thing to have handy. That and sort of a talcum powder to dry up, which I don't actually have in here. But anyway, this has pretty much everything I need to maintain and to look after and keep up my husbandry of my animals. I also have a spray bottle hanging up there for misting, watering, that kind of stuff. But try, if possible, to keep all your stuff together, and it will make life so much easier.
Next up is Lee's Creatures Features. Yay! Let's get on to it.
Hi Princess Sophie Pink, it's Lee from Lee's Creature Features here. Thanks for including me in the video. So you asked me what's my favourite moment with all of my pets. Now for me, I think it's the first time you bring a pet home for the first time. It doesn't matter how many pets you've got. Anytime you bring a new pet home for the first time, you can't beat that feeling. Getting them in their enclosure and watching them settle in and knowing they're happy, and if they're happy, you're happy. I absolutely love that feeling. So yes, for me, my favourite moment is bringing a new pet home for the first time. So next, you asked me, what's my proudest moment? Now, for me, it's definitely building the paludarium that you can see behind me. I do need to do a little bit of maintenance on this. I've taken some plants out so I can redo it. But getting it all set up and working with mixed species in there, so you've got a few different types of animal, and getting them all living happily together and getting it all set up just right is a really big achievement for me, and I absolutely love doing this. So yeah, for me, my proudest achievement is getting this one all set up and ready. So finally, you asked me what's my biggest regret. And to be honest, the only regret I've got in getting into this hobby is not doing it sooner. You know, I love what you're doing, you know, doing it young and inspiring a whole new generation of people to get into the hobby. I think it's absolutely amazing. I just wish I did it sooner. Other than that, my only regret is probably the same thing a lot of people do to start with, and that's they rush out, they get a new pet, then they come home and they start getting the enclosures and all that set up, and not doing enough research. I think that's the biggest regret a lot of people do when they first start out. It's not doing enough research before they start and before they get their first pet. and you know, it can create problems and stress the animals out. So yeah, 2 regrets for me. First, he's not doing enough research before I started. Luckily, we all learn from our mistakes and we're all better for it. And secondly, he's not starting when I was younger.
Thank you everyone who was in this video. They will be linked in the description if you want to subscribe to them. And I hope you guys like this. If you did, smash that like button and subscribe button, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.